This is solving rational inequalities part 2. These problems are a little more complicated because notice here's our rational function, but it's less than a number that is not 0. So we have to follow these two steps that were listed on the previous video. You need to get all of the terms on the left side of the inequality and have 0 on the right side. And once we do that, then we also have to write the left side as a single quotient. And that's what's difficult because you need to get yourself a common denominator. So first step, just subtract 1 from both sides. That's simple. That fits this criteria. We have everything on the left side. We have 0 on the other side. We have to go through the steps to get a common denominator. The common denominator is x minus 3. So both of these will have a denominator of x minus 3. This one already has a denominator we want, so we just bring that numerator on down. I would like to think about this as plus and negative, so I can put a plus here. This denominator was x minus 3, which means I need to multiply this fraction by x minus 3 over x minus 3. Negative 1 times x minus 3 gives me negative x plus 3. Now I have a common denominator. I have created my new numerators. I can combine the numerators and have negative x plus 4 over x minus 3 less than 0. That's what we're going to start working on the next screen. Negative x plus 4 over x minus 3 less than 0. We follow the rest of the steps from the other video. We have set the numerator equal to 0, set the denominator equal to 0, and solve. This gives me x equals 4. This gives me x equals 3. Here's the two numbers on the number line. I just have to do my test points. Pick a number to the left of 3. I'll choose 2. Negative 2 plus 4 is a positive 2. 2 minus 3 is a negative 1. A positive divided by a negative is a negative. A number between 3 and 4, I'll choose 3.5. If I put 3.5 in here, I'm looking at negative 3.5 plus 4. That will be a positive value. Put 3.5 in here, 3.5 minus 3 will be a positive value. A positive divided by a positive is a positive. Something to the right of 4, like 5. Negative 5 plus 4 will be negative. 5 minus 3 will be positive. A negative divided by a positive is a negative. We're looking at this sign right here, less than. The values that are less than 0 would be the negative values, so that we will shade wherever we see a negative. We are looking for where the bottom row has negatives, which is in this region, and this region over here. Decide on your symbols based on that. That was a plain old less. That means we're going to use the curved parentheses. And the interval notation that goes with that is from negative infinity up to 3, and on the other side from 4 on down to positive infinity. Similar problem because we have a number over here that is not 0 on the right side. So we'll start out with very simply just subtracting 2 from both sides, which gives us this. And at this point we need to think about the common denominator. Give this a denominator of 1, and then you can proceed with getting your common denominator. The common denominator is x plus 3. So we'll write this here, and we'll write it here. The first fraction already has the denominator we want, so bring the numerator right on down. I would think about this as plus and negative, so I can put a plus right in here. This denominator is 1, so I need to multiply that denominator by x plus 3 to create the common denominator of x plus 3. If I multiply the bottom by x plus 3, I have to multiply the top by x plus 3. Remember that is a negative 2, so negative 2 distributed through here makes negative 2x minus 6. So we have our common denominator. Keep your denominator. Combine your numerators. X plus negative 2x is negative x. 1 minus 6 is negative 5. This is still greater than or equal to 0. So now we're ready to complete it over here on this side. So at this point we follow the steps of setting the numerator equal to 0, set the denominator equal to 0, and then solve those. Incidentally, this is an x equals negative 5 because if you add 5 to both sides right here, on this step you would have negative x equals 5. And you would need to change that sign and change that side. That's how it becomes a negative 5. Our test points, something to the left of negative 5 would be negative 6. Be careful right here. This is negative of negative 6 and then minus 5. Two negatives in a row make this a positive. 6 minus 5 is a positive 1. Put a negative 6 right here. Negative 6 plus 3 is negative 3. A positive divided by a negative is a negative. A number between negative 5 and negative 3 would be negative 4. Same thing with this negative. It's negative of negative 4 minus 5. The two negatives in a row make a positive, but 4 minus 5 is a negative. Negative 4 right here would be negative 4 plus 3 is a negative. A negative divided by negative is a positive. Something to the right of negative 3, I'll choose 0 because the arithmetic's easy. Put 0 in here gives me a negative. 0 in here gives me a positive. A negative divided by a positive is a negative. So here's our sign, greater than or equal to 0. So the values that are greater than or equal to 0 are the positives. So here's where I have a positive in my bottom row. So I know I'm going to shade right in here. But I have to decide on the signs, and this is something we talked about in the last video. This is greater than or equal to, which would make you think it's got to be the square brackets. But we can't use the square bracket on the denominator. What has to be on the denominator solution will be a curve. This one can still get the square bracket. This has to be a curve. Because if we use the square bracket, that would imply negative 3 itself is a solution. And if you put negative 3 in right here, negative 3 plus 3 is 0. You would have a 0 in the denominator, which is undefined. That's why that has to be a curve. So we said this in the last video. The denominator solution always gets the curved parenthesis, not the square brackets, which is what we have here. And here's your interval notation. From negative 5 to negative 3 using these symbols that you have on the graph, square bracket there, curved parenthesis there.